Okay, story time. A few years ago, I discovered this artist called Mick Gordon. He composed the soundtrack to a video game called Doom, and he did a talk about his creative process. And if you haven't watched that talk, please go watch it right now. The link is right up here in the corner. Please go watch that. It's super inspiring. But one of the things that he kind of opened my ear to is the fact that sometimes you take a sub-bass element, like a sine wave, just a hoo 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 sound, and you want something that I'm going to call bass flutter in between. Sort of white noise that solidifies the story that this is a heavy moving bass. So without the white noise, the bass would sound like this. And then we add some white noise. And suddenly our ear has so much more to hold on to. So much more richness, even though there's no more distortion or tonal quality to anything. Nasty, right? You'll also hear it in a more delicate quality in this Max Cooper production. But obviously you'll also hear it in really hard, heavy hitting things like in the new Blawan album. And obviously in Mick Gordon's music himself. So bass, fizzle. What are the secret ingredients? Let's go through it together. Okay, so at the core, we want something very clean. We want a synthesizer that's just going to give us an operator. A simple sine wave. To get the best effects, we want to make sure that the fundamental frequency, or the only frequency in this case, is close to 50 hertz in that lowest octave. So let's just use a pitch machine. A pitch machine, that's what I call it. A MIDI device, a pitch MIDI device, to put the fundamental frequency way down there, right? That's kind of the warmth we're looking for. And now, a sine wave like this is too stable. It's too friendly. We want it to have some movement in it. And probably phasing is the best way to get movement. So I would say let's use this FM synthesizer to just add in some movement somehow. So if I bring in this second operator and I detune it slightly, you hear it. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's bring in a third one. We just want it to be filthy and moving. That's great. These frequencies beat up against each other, and at each different pitch they beat at a different frequency, so they're going to move faster or slower. So that's a vibe. Now what we want to do is we just want to add in a pinch of white noise. And there's a few different ways of achieving this, but I think maybe the easiest and most elegant is to group this instrument. And then you can open up the chains here and simply drag another operator in. So you have to think about the signal flow here. Basically the MIDI notes come through here and then they get split and they get fed into these two separate operators. One is our bass and this other one's going to be our noise. And on the synthesizer, that's going to be our noise synthesizer. We make sure that we set some noise. Now, noise is a lot louder than bass, so we're going to bring it way down so that when we hit a note, that's kind of all we need, because then when we're going to put it through some very simple processing afterwards, this noise and this bass are going to respond to each other. They're going to move together. In fact, there were only two things that I added, I think. One is a super extreme limiter, because I don't want this element to be very dynamic. I want it to just be loud and filthy. great. And then I would also add a very simple amp just before the limiter. Let's use boost. Beautiful. The volume of the noise is going to make a huge difference. Let's bring it down to infinity. See, it's already adding a lot with the amp. Oh, let's not forget that on this noise, see there's a filter automatically built into the synthesizer. Let's turn that off. Yeah. You notice how the noise is pulsating with the bass? Because they're both being processed by this extreme limiter, when the bass waves, the noise can kind of fill in the gaps in between it. So if I play on my keyboard, let's sculpt this a bit. Yeah, let's keep our bass actually very bassy. So the difference from no noise to some noise is quite enormous. So we use only a tiny bit of noise, right? And that's essentially all that I did on my own bass here. Then I added in some side chaining and some reverb to give it even more space. And as you can see, when we go down super low into like infrasonic, the bass waves go so slow that you can really hear the flutter of the white noise coming through. Now, yeah? It really falls apart. And so together it works so well, no? Bass flutter, a very simple concept. Make sure you've got a low moving bass line. Fill in the gaps in between those bass spaces with some tiny little bit of fluttery white noise. Process it together so it gets really gnarly and the two layers respond to each other. And then just have fun with it. That's just, don't be too precious. It's a rowdy element that's super fun to experiment with and have fun with it. Bonus points if you have a keyboard and you can, do something like this, play all the way to the left. That's what it sounds like up top. Notice how the white noise responds differently in different notes. That gives interest and unpredictability and fucking punk attitude. Come on. It's so good. By the way, if you want to really mess with the sound even further, remember that you can add more layers to this in parallel. So you've already got this beautiful big sounds like that. You can add filth on top of that by maybe using things like shifter, where you'd maybe add in a tiny bit. There's just so much to play with. Are there any artists that you know that do this kind of thing? Leave a link to them in the comments. I would love to discover more people who get absolutely filthy with bass. I know that like in dubstep, of course, there's a lot of that, but good music is good music, so send me whatever you love. Like the video and subscribe. And if you like the way I teach, maybe go follow one of my courses. And until next time, stay producing, be good to each other, and take care. Bye-bye.